Hey guys, I've got someone that's going to be crashing in my place for about a week or so, so you're going to be getting some car reviews, which makes me, once again, an official YouTuber, so expect some content kind of in this format. I wanted to talk about the newest Meshuggah record and kind of the band on the whole. They're kind of a curious case where they managed to formulate their own sound and kind of accidentally create a subgenre. And it's a very maligned subgenre that unfortunately has the modern metal scene by the balls, but I don't want to blame them for it because for the most part, I do not have any ill will towards this band. They have succeeded throughout their career in documenting themselves as having a unique voice and presenting imagery through music that is uniquely theirs. When you hear it, for the most part, even though it's been copied to death, you know it's them. So that's an achievement in itself. The issue that I have with this particular record, when you hear that when you hear the title of the record, when you hear it's called Immutable, that to me is them trying to show you that they are making an artistic statement that is bringing them into the product as opposed to letting the product speak for them. And I understand the need to do this when all the young kids nowadays are jocking your sound and you kind of feel like you may have lost a little bit of your identity. I understand why you would want to make a statement like this. But there is a bit of a vulnerability here and a bit of a humanness that kind of goes against what the band has always stood for. And I think that as much as this band is known for their polyrhythms, the heavy grooves, the odd time signatures, as much as they're known for that, that's more of a Trojan horse to allow the actual imagery of what the music is conjuring to develop among the audience. Even though they have so much of those aesthetics that you can immediately point out, they use them in a way to give you this cold, emotionless, machinery type feel to their music. So in doing so, you have a product that is devoid of human characteristics, which transcends all of the human trappings that we find in a lot of modern metal records, so that the whole Gent scene, in that through aping the sound, because it kind of jumps into the rat race of wanting to portray itself as something, it does not correspond to what this band organically has done. But on this record, you could feel that vulnerability coming through. You could feel that they have their recipe, they know the world has acknowledged their recipe, and they wanted to make a statement not through the music, but about who they are as musicians, which is not an inherently metal thing to do. You want to have your art speak for itself. You don't need to defend it. If you feel that you are speaking for your art, you're admitting a weakness and insecurity, and it kind of takes away a bit of the artistry that goes into the product you're trying to represent. So, that is being portrayed not so much in only the message of the record, but throughout the music as you hear it. There has been a gradual insertion of human ideas into the lyrics and song titles, which weren't really being represented up through maybe Chaosphere. While we're on the subject of Chaosphere, I think that is kind of the perfect blend of all of their styles and creating a very cold, calculated atmosphere. So I'm probably going to reach for that. This one has a lot more melody coming through, and I am always an advocate for melody. I think melody is the soul of your composition, but I will admit that for this band, when they're trying to recreate the cold, calculated idea of machinery through music, melody can sometimes counteract your message. And I think that they have done a great job at giving you songs in the last couple of records, especially, probably from Obzen on, but they still have kind of distanced themselves a little bit from the formula that made them more of a special band. That being said, the melodies here are probably the strongest they've been on most of their throughout most of their catalog. They managed to have themes that you're going to remember, which is not an easy feat for this band. And the main reason why a lot of it sticks with you is there is a template to all of this material aside from the interludes. If you pay attention to what's going on, you'll notice that there is a verse chorus type of arrangement. You'll hear the beginning of the song will always start with guitars and drums together, and it'll be barbaric and rhythmic, and then they will add layers to it. You'll start hearing that ethereal guitar over the top, and that is their patented sound, and it works. They are able to bring in the melody that takes place over these barbaric percussive passages ends up giving a nice little duality between that cold, humanless type of atmosphere to what could represent something with a soul speaking over it. So I understand why they do it, but you grow pretty tired of it as the record progresses when you can feel that that is going to be the arrangement that they settle on before you even hear it. There are brief respites from this throughout a couple of instrumentals, which were actually very surprising to hear. One of them is like 10 minutes long, and it doesn't present itself as an instrumental. You feel like there's going to be vocals coming in, and it never happens. So there's passages in that particular song where you end up having themes develop really well, but they don't lead into the next in any kind of gratifying way. There isn't a lot of cohesion to what that particular song or a lot of the particular songs have here. As much as they have themes in mind, you will see that there isn't much tying one passage to the next aside from the polyrhythm that they've developed. And that's fine. You at least have some kind of unifying theme, but you'll see a lot of complete stops and starts. And if you try to digest this album on the whole, you'll have a hard time identifying the utility of each song, of each passage. When all of the songs serve essentially the same purpose, you don't really have the need for an album that's an hour long. What I did like hearing were some of these instrumental passages that hint that they have more up their sleeve than they used to identify with on previous records. There's one track that is all tremolo picking, and it's all melody, and they've never done that. And I was really excited to hear where that would go, and then it just peters out. And that's really unfortunate, because it's showing me that you have these glimmers in you to develop your sound this far into your career. It's really exciting, and then to just have it be just this brief appetizer before more of the same is really unfortunate. There's elements of all of the older Meshuggah records in here. They bring back a lot of the third harmony that you heard on, say, like the Nun EP, and on Destroy, Erase, Improve. A lot of the octave slides on that record were in thirds, and you end up hearing that same kind of harmony taking place here, and they've kind of divorced themselves from harmony for a long time. So it's nice to hear that, because that harkens back to their like thrash beginnings that you hear on stuff like Contradictions, Collapse. So I don't know, after getting done with the record, I felt pretty exhausted by their template, and a lot of people are not digging this record so much. A lot of the Gent kids are not feeling it because it doesn't sound like their take on Meshuggah's sound. They don't have that overdrive that's in the writing between the amp and the speaker. They don't have that, so you don't have this really attacky strike to your notes. It's kind of a muted, even though it's heavy, it's kind of a muted attack, whereas like the gain on the attacks of modern metal records are really, really percussive, and the notes kind of strangle their ways into your ear. But this is a lot more of a subdued kind of approach, which is kind of surprising. I mean, it's still very heavy, but it's not what the kids want to hear in terms of a production value. And that goes to show you that these kids were never really listening to what the band actually had to offer as a musical language, so much as what the aesthetics that were making up that language. And there's a lot of ways that you can listen to this band. You can just let the atmosphere consume you, which is probably what I would think is the best possible way to do it. Or you can bring yourself into the formula, which is what a lot of these kids do, where they try to figure out what the patterns are. And when you're making music like this, and you want to make sure that the listener is bewildered and present them with this really alien sounding language, you're giving them this idea of something that is divorced from humanity in terms of a listening process. And when your audience decides to try to figure that out, try to find out who's behind the curtain, you're bringing in a human element into something that is not supposed to have one, and making it about you. And that's the problem with Meshuggah. That's the problem with why they are so easy to emulate, because you can look at their patterns, you can look at their template, and you could copy the aesthetics, but once again, the soul is not really there. That's why you have a million copycats, but there's only still going to be one Meshuggah. And this is them showing themselves, showing the audience who they are. And it is a very declarative statement, but at the same time, by expanding on their palette in the very limited ways they did, they're expressing some of that weakness, in that it feels like they're showing you that you can teach an old dog new tricks. And some of it feels organic and some of it doesn't. And what I liked about this band is that their musical language felt seamless to me. And now they're bringing in these elements that, although the recipe is very well defined, although it's still definitely them, they haven't reinvented the wheel in any way. Just the fact that they're giving you teasers of these elements of things that represent entirely different soundscapes, like these long tremolo picked tracks that stand on their own as interludes. It shows me that they're trying to show you, yes, we can do other things, but we're not very committed to it. And that commitment you could feel if it's organically woven into the record, and not so much a breath of air in between all of the same kind of bludgeonings that you're used to from the band. So I do think that thematically there is some really good riffs here. Some of it is very strong. A lot of it has more of tonal diversity than some of their other records. It's not all on the lowest string of the guitar. Some of it is in the B flat tuning that they used up until nothing, and some of it goes down to 9-string range. So even though this is an aesthetic compliment, it's about all you can expect from a band who is driven by aesthetics to forward a message. So there are some successes here and there are some failings there, but it's, on the whole, it is a solid Meshuggah record. It's not one that I think should be their defining moment, as it would seem to indicate from how they have talked about it, and mainly from the album title alone, by putting themselves into it and not having it be such a cold, calculated understanding of something that that people are just not familiar with. It's not presenting a tapestry of unfamiliarity. It's giving you them repackaged slightly with a little bit more humanness to it, so that you can identify with it and that you can hopefully like it, which is that's always the detriment of a lot of the artists I hear. They try to write with the audience forward, and I really hope that that is not the case here. I mean, they're fucking old as shit. Just make the music you want to hear. You don't have to, you don't owe anyone anything. You accidentally created a subgenre, and that's cool, but you're not going to lose any face by being who you are. Just be who you are. And I think that if they were to have committed to a lot of these things that they're giving us brief appetizers of, we would have a full package here that would represent the artist as a whole, but it feels a bit incomplete despite being an hour long. So that's my thoughts on this record and on the band as a whole. Like I said, I do not think that they deserve immense hatred. They are a technique forward band, an aesthetic forward band, a gimmick forward band, admittedly, but they have managed to create an atmosphere out of that showcases actual artistry, and a lot of bands can't do that. So I will give them credit for that, but in terms of putting out a career-defining record, they didn't really hit the mark with this one. So thank you for listening.